What's up, everybody? My name is Donnell Morris, also known as Prince Donnell across all social media platforms, and I am the founder of the Jumping Jack Tax franchise. So how I got into franchising, funny story, my mother used to do taxes since I was about 14 years old, and I would see her literally preparing taxes on her couch. Clients would knock on her door and they would put their documents through the mailbox, and I would go grab them and I would give them to my mother, and she would be sitting on the couch all night doing taxes. And I tell her this all the time, that she should have taught me the skill set of it, because I would be much better today than I was. I'd be much better today than I currently am now. And I just remember she would just go hard at doing it. And that in itself exposed me to tax preparation. And from there, I ended up going to school for accounting, ended up dropping out and went into entrepreneurship. But that's how I found the love for financial services. And that kind of led into just me getting jobs and working at different banks across Philadelphia. I ended up getting my insurance license, so I was exposed to life insurance and annuities, and I sold millions of dollars of policies to a lot of clients. So I found a love for financial services, and it wasn't until I ended up meeting my father-in-law, and he said, "Don, you need to go into need-based businesses." And I said, "Well, what's a need-based business?" He said, "That's something in your community that every person is going to need, regardless of the internet, regardless of social media. Like, we don't want to do fads, go into needs." And at the time, I'm like, I don't really want to do that. I think taxes is boring, life insurance is boring. I want to go away. I want to go start an e-commerce store. And everything just really came back full circle. And I think when I ended up starting the e-commerce store, it didn't do really well. And we revisited the conversation. He's like, "You want to start the need-based business now?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." So that's when I ended up going to school, learning about tax preparation, honed in on my skills. I ended up getting my insurance license. And from that point, that's when Jumping Jack Tax was started. And our mascot, Jack, our kangaroo. And from there, we just started out with one location right here in Philadelphia. That first location did well. We did it virtually. And we had clients, not just in Philadelphia, but clients across all different states with our system. And people just started to come to us and was like, "Hey, how did you guys develop a system like this to where you guys are doing virtual tax preparation?" And from there, we ended up selling a lot of courses to tax preparers who were interested in learning how to do taxes virtually. But my ultimate goal was, hey, I want to take this thing to a level that only a few companies in this industry have taken it around financial services. And the only way to do that is to move into franchise, right? To move it into an enterprise. So as of November 2020, we ended up getting all of our affairs in order, and we became an official franchise. November 2020, can't never forget that day. And from there, we now have about 15 franchise locations in the 9 months that we've been a franchise in about 6 different states. And we're more than just a tax franchise. We're a financial services franchise where we specialize in not just personal and business tax preparation, but we specialize in small business owners who make less than $1 million by providing them with financial services, life insurance needs, tax planning. And we are really shaping our community when it comes to financial literacy and the resources that we provide so that we can increase value within our communities. So that's how I got into the franchising side. That is a great question. What do I love about franchising? 2 things. Number one is group economics. I think that there's no way that a culture can move forward without group economics. I'm African American, and also my wife is Hispanic. And with those 2 cultures specifically, we're minorities, and we're in last place when it comes to the building of wealth specific. And I think that group economics is a big part of what helps our culture specifically to be able to grow when it comes to our wealth. And franchising is a big part of group economics. Reason being is because you have the ability for a group of individuals to come together under one brand, be able to promote this brand, and through everybody's efforts, if done correctly, they can win. One person across the country is promoting the brand really hard, and it can result into another person on the different side of the country actually generating revenue and making money too. So that team environment, that group economic is so powerful to me. And I think that that's what makes franchising special. And then the second thing is longevity. When I walk through my communities, I saw the same franchises sitting there in those communities for like 20, 30 years. Some of them have been there for longer than I've been around. And that speaks to the fact that in the franchise industry, when you develop a great system and you have a great name brand, you now have a company, a franchise that can last, that can outlive others, that can be in the community for generations to come. And that's the goal of what I'm trying to achieve with Jumping Jack Tax, that within our communities, these locations live forever. You can pass these down to your children. You can pass these down to your grandchildren, and the name continues to live on even when I'm no longer around. And that's what I love about franchising and what makes it so special. So what makes somebody a good fit for the franchise industry, to me, is togetherness. I'm very, 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 very big on togetherness. I'm big on group economics, like I spoke about earlier. If somebody, and I've learned this from there was a guy called his name is Kit Vincent. Shout out to Kit. He's actually they call him the Fran Man. When we were originally starting the franchise, he flew into our location here in Philadelphia, and he developed our franchise operations manual, which is now about 200 pages, and it's so detailed. And one of the things that he said to me when we sat down at lunch is, Don, I want you to focus on togetherness. I want you to focus on unity. You master those two areas and you get every single person in the franchise on one accord. Everybody has a unified mind. You are going to exceed your own expectations of what you believe where this company can go. So now when I'm talking to each individual that's interested in coming into the Jumping Jack Tax franchise, my first quality is, hey, how do you work well with the team, right? What have you ever had an experience before where you've utilized group economics? How do you feel about that? Because I know when they come in, if all of us are on one accord around the vision that we believe and that we see for the company, then we're all going to operate effectively. We're all going to have the same energy, the same vision. We're all going to treat the clients the right way. And through that, now we're going to be able to grow a very solid and amazing company. And again, one that outlasts me, one that outlasts the franchisees. So to me, it's togetherness is my biggest quality. When it comes to comeback from the pandemic for the franchise industry, I can't necessarily speak for that because we just became a franchise in November 2020. So I can't really speak for the comeback from the pandemic. But what I can do is speak to the challenges and the opportunities that I've seen thus far in the past 9 months of being in franchising, and the impact that we've created thus far, and the fact that we now have 15 locations that are opening come 2022 in just a 9-month time span. I think the big opportunity is digital marketing and social media. So for those who don't know, my social media name is Prince Donnell across all platforms. I currently have about 780,000 followers on Instagram, about 500,000 on Facebook, 300,000 on TikTok, and 100K on YouTube. So across all platforms, me as the founder, I have maybe 1.5 to 2 million people that follow my personal brand. And through them following my personal brand, they now begin to support the actual franchise. And it allowed us to grow at a much faster rate than what any normal franchise will when they first launch, and having to spend a lot of money on leads to be able to find new franchisees, to spend money on customer acquisition. All of this is at my fingertips right now. And when I look at a lot of the bigger franchises currently who have millions of dollars at their disposal to be able to spend on marketing, many of them are not spending that on digital and social media advertisement when it's the easiest way to be able to get in contact with your customers. And even for those who are new franchises like myself that may not have all the necessary funding when it comes to marketing $1 million budget, this is a free way for you to be able to get out there and get the brand exposed, right? Your customers are on TikTok right now, spending hours between the ages of 17 to 25 years old. If your customers are on Facebook right now, spending hours between the ages of 28 to 55 years old. Your customers are on Instagram right now that are between the ages of 23 to about 35 years old. So whichever market that you're interested in, or LinkedIn, whichever market you're interested in, the customers are there. And I believe that social media and digital marketing is vastly underutilized across the franchise world. And with Jumping Jack Tax, our biggest initiative right now for every franchisee that comes in, they got to have an understanding of social media or the willingness to learn it, because through that, that's our way of us being able to really outcompete those that are in our industry. The advice that I would give is going to be twofold, because I think that there's an advice for franchisors and there's an advice for franchisees. So to start, the advice that I would give to individuals that are starting in a franchise as the franchisor, the actual company, I'm going to give you the advice that my franchise attorney stressed to me, and he still does to this day. He said, Don, focus on making sure that your franchisees make money. Do not focus on trying to create a bunch of different units all over the country and you're trying to grow, but yet you're not going deep and making sure that franchisees are profiting. And through them profiting, it allows them to be able to expand quicker. And that stays on top of my mind. Honestly, we could have more than 15 franchises today. Right now, that's long. We probably had a few hundred applications that came in, and we rejected about 95% of them because of the fact that we want to have the best. And we also want to focus on understanding our system. And with our first season coming up, we want to understand our process. We want to make sure that these initial franchisees, that they're making money. And through them making money, we can understand the data and we can duplicate that data further. So I'm taking the advice, I'm going to give it to you of what my attorney said. Focus on your franchisees making money. And the second thing is, don't subscribe to That's How It Works, because you can create a new way. There was when we were in the phases of starting the franchise, I got a lot of advice from what I would consider OGs in the game, individuals who have been in the game for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And they gave me a lot of good advice, but at the same time, it was also advice that was like, hey, here's how it's supposed to be done. But I think that as a young franchisor, I don't subscribe to that, because that means that I'm going to limit my creativity, my ability to think bigger, to really revolutionize this. I don't think that when Ray Kroc came into this industry that he subscribed to That's How It Was Done. He completely revolutionized this to the place where there still hasn't been a franchise to this day that has been able to truly outcompete McDonald's in the innovations that they've brought forward. And it still lives on, although he's no longer here. So don't subscribe to that if you're a franchisor. Now, the advice that I would give to franchisees, individuals that are interested in buying a franchise, there's three things that I would look for from a business perspective. Number one, you want to look for a franchise. But when we get back to that question, we talk about the pandemic, right? Well, I believe that the leader of any franchise, the founder or whoever that CEO is, and their executive team, if there's a great team that's involved, they're going to be able to pivot out of anything, because they're a phenomenal team. They're well-oiled. Again, it's a part of the reason why McDonald's is the way that they are today. They have a well-oiled system, a well-oiled team. And the same thing here with Jumping Jack Tax. My goal as the founder is to build a well-oiled around executive individuals. No matter what the issue is, we can pivot beyond that. And that's going to give a belief to the franchisees that are want to buy in, like, hey, I don't care what happens. Pandemic, economic crash, recession, whatever it is, I can trust that the leadership is going to get this done. Number two, look at the culture of the franchise. I'm big on culture, right? Look at the culture. that culture is going to tell you how you're going to be treated as a franchisee, and how that's going to lean down to how the staff is going to be treated, and then how the customers are going to be treated. So look at that culture, ask about that culture. What is it that they actually believe in? Every franchisee, I tell them what I believe in. I believe in group economics. I believe in togetherness. I believe in giving back to your community. Y'all need to have food drives on a monthly, bi-monthly basis. You need to have financial literacy events on a monthly, bi-monthly basis, because the money that customers are giving us, we need to provide value right back. We're not just a company that's sitting on the corner taking money from the community but not giving back in return. You can save that for the other companies that are out there doing that. So the culture needs to be clear, and if they don't have a clear one, then you should steer clear as a potential franchisee. And lastly, look at the data of the franchise. I'm big on data, but the reason why data is not number one for me is because, again, if we're looking at a newer franchise like Jumping Jack Tax, if you were to compare us to another franchise out there that has 50 years of history, there's be better than ours. Absolutely. And I make it clear to everybody we have a phone call with. But I believe that the leadership and the culture, if done correctly, leadership and culture is almost always going to lead to great data in the future. It may not be 5 years, it may not be a year, it may not be 5 years, it may not be 10, it could be 20. But as long as leadership and culture are in place, that is always going to lead to great data. There's just a matter of when. And that's the reason why I wouldn't put data as my number one. But all three, for one who is interested in coming into a franchise as a franchisee, those are the three things that I will weigh if I'm looking at a franchise.